I was waiting to hear back from my manager, and I wasn't hearing back. So I was like, F it, I just bought a plane ticket and flew to Vegas and just hopes that I was going to get the fight. And then soon enough, as soon as I got there, the fight got confirmed. And
My next guest clearly does not like getting paid by the hour because he's coming off a first round submission victory over Sumudaerji at UFC Vegas 83 back on December 9th. It's Tim Elliott back here on the program. Tim, how are you?
I'm good, man. Just got back into Texas last night. Had wrestling practice this morning. Had my face rubbed in the mat by some young guys. So good. Doing what I love to do every day.
And it's much sweeter coming off a nice win like that, I'm sure, going back to the gym and seeing everyone. Congrats on that. I wanted to go all the way back, though, because I don't know if we really got to hear much from you going into the fight. I know it was short notice. How much notice did you get for this opportunity to face Sumudaerji?
So I flew to Texas to start my camp 2 days prior. They called me Monday evening. I think I had 2 practices here with my coaches, and my manager called me. He was like, "Hey, do you think you'd be able to fight in February? We had a fight fall off." And I was like, "Oh yeah, of course." And then he was like, "Okay, what about December 16th? Because really the fight was supposed to be this weekend." And I was like, "Yes, the 16th is fine." And then he called and said that the 16th was a hard card to get on. It was a big card. They didn't know if they could add another fight. Would you be able to fight on the 9th? And I was like, "No problem. Let's do it." I was like, "Can I get a catch weight?" I asked for 5 pounds, and then they're like, "I'll give you 10 pounds." So I got to come in and catch weight at 135. So I found out on Monday. I was waiting to hear back from my manager, and I wasn't hearing back. So I was like, "Fuck it, I just bought a plane ticket and flew to Vegas and just hopes that I was going to get the fight." And then soon enough, as soon as I got there, the fight got confirmed, and then I fought. So I think I had 5 days notice.
That's amazing. So what would have happened if you didn't get the fight? Just go and hang out at the PI and do some training,
Yeah,
or what? Yeah, okay.
yeah. See some friends. I have Coach Casey and a lot of friends that live in Las Vegas, and the weather's nice. I went and hiked and went, even though I was fought anyway, I hiked to the hot springs and went and sat in the hot springs, and then went and swam in the freezing cold Colorado River like 2 days before the fight. So I was able to really enjoy it. Um, Having a long camp, man, is kind of scary, especially the way I train. I'm kind of reckless, and I'm having fun in practice just like I am in the fight. So I tend to get hurt, or lots can go wrong with a ton of time. When they called me on Monday telling me I was going to fight on Saturday, I knew I was going to get a fight. I knew there's nothing could stop me. So it worked out perfect.
Good for you, man. That's great. UFC, I imagine, compensated you for the flight, I would hope.
I didn't even ask them. I'm sure they would if I asked them to, but that was the best payday I've ever made. So hard to bitch about. I think my ticket there was $70. So
I keep forgetting flights in the US are so much cheaper. In Canada, they're so expensive. I don't know why. So you guys have it a lot better, like as far as traveling. But that's a topic for another day. Did you know much about your opponent before you took this fight? Were you pretty familiar with him, or is he one of those guys where you're just? I mean, you're a veteran, anyways. You've pretty much seen everyone, right?
yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where I was going to fight no matter
Who it
who
was.
it was really. Well, because my manager kind of told me, he's like, "Yo, I'm taking a short notice fight. Like, chances are you're going to get a new contract." And I was like, and that's the most important thing to me. Like, I want to secure a job, not just any job. I want to fight. That's what I like to do. So, like, one of my biggest fears is to get that call saying, you're not fighting no more. But yeah, I knew a bit about Sue. We were supposed to fight once before, and he had a knee injury, so we didn't get a fight. I always watch him, like, seen, he's got a ton of knockouts. I think 13 of his 16 wins are from knockouts. So um, always somebody that I kind of had an eye on. I knew he was going to, we're always kind of close in the rankings. The division is fairly small. And the good guys are, all around the top 10, 11 guys. So I try to watch all them guys pretty consistently.
Makes sense. And you mentioned a new contract. So is this like 4 fights? Like how long's your contract?
4 fights, got a raise, got a bonus. Yeah, it's going to be a good Christmas for my daughter. That's for sure.
Good for you, man. How many contracts is that now? Because I think people forget you. I remember you were at the UFC, then you got released, then you fought. I remember for in Titan forever. I remember covering those events back when you used to do those cards, like headlining them, and then you got back in through the Ultimate Fighter. So this has got to be like contract. I don't know. My math's not very good, but it's a lot of contracts, which a lot of fighters don't get. So you kind of been able to reflect on that side of things.
Yeah, man, and it's one of those things where I got fired by the UFC, and then my first fight back in the UFC, I fought for a world championship. So that was kind of strange. Um, but they don't like to. It's not one of those things where they like to sign guys, and they like to have guys that have like a gimmick, that have a something about them, being from a certain country. But for me, I'm a straight white American male, and I'm old, so like I'm not the guy they're looking to keep throwing
Right.
contracts out. So
Yeah.
I feel lucky, and one thing that I do have for me is the ability to take short notice fights, and the ability to adapt, and the ability to make weight on short notice, to come in, make weight, fight hard. Like they know they can get that out of me at least, even if they're trying to feed me to the wolves. Like I'm okay with that. Like I also am a wolf, so I want to go in and fight. So it's it's been a great run, and again, like all I get to do all this mostly because I have good people in my corner. It's not really me. All I do is show up and fight. My job is easy. My coaches, they have the tough job. They have to deal with me. My manager has to deal with me and has to deal with the UFC. So like my job is really easy. I've put good people in my corner, so all I have to do is what I'm told, and it makes it so easy.
Could that fight have gone any better? Like again, I mentioned it there. You don't get paid by the hour. Could it have gone any better, or was this exactly perfect scenario for you?
I don't think it could have went any better. And honestly, we didn't have a lot of time to game plan, but we did a quick game plan in the back right before going out, and it literally worked out exactly how we were hoping it. Not like how I thought that it was going to, but how we were hoping. I wanted to try to stand and work some striking and stuff, and then my coach was like, "Man, this is a guy that you can take down and submit." And I was like, "Well, I have never done that really to anybody else, so." But again, I didn't really ask any questions. I just, you got it. I'm gonna take him down. I'm gonna submit him, and that's exactly what happened. And even on the choke, like I was a little bit worried about burning my arms out. I probably would have bailed on the choke had my coaches not been screaming that it's in and I was gonna get it. He was gurgling and stuff. I could hear him, but also so was Muhammad Makaev. Almost every guillotine I had him in, he was like squirming and gurgling. And I was like, "Oh shit, I got this!" So I would squeeze, and then I never got it. And then I'd come up like, "Oh shit, now I got no arms." But again, it's all my corner, my coaches, and my manager. Like they work hard for their money as well. So we all got paid on Saturday.
Good for you. First stoppage win since 2017, the Mark De La Rosa fight. That's got to feel good too, because I know like you mentioned in that Mokaev fight, like you've been trying to go for the finish, but now to finally get it, especially in the first round, that's got to be super sweet.
It's really nice. Also, on just being able to wake up the next day and not feel like I got the shit kicked out of me is great. Like my
That
shins
too,
don't
yeah.
hurt, my hands don't hurt, my head doesn't hurt. Um, I could have and wanted to, and was like, I hung out in Vegas a few days on the off chance, like maybe Cody Garbrandt or one of those guys would fall off or not make weight, and I could jump in and do another quick fight at 35. And because there's no risk there. If I'm going up and doing favors for the promotions, like, and fighting exciting fights, like even if I lose, they're not gonna like just fire me for no reason. So I was eager to like maybe stick around and try to get something else going. But again, at this level, not a lot of guys are falling off within the week. So I got lucky to get the fight that I did. Um, and I don't know what it is with Nascimento. I don't think it's injuries, because he did the same thing to me. I think I saw him at the fights after he was supposed to fight me when I fought Victor. He was huge. I think he's just too big for the weight class, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. You mentioned there, by the way, that you were scheduled for a fight in February. Is that still on, or is there a different fight now with you competing last weekend?
Uh, so this was going to be the fight. I was going to fill in for Nascimento to fight Sue in February.
Oh, I
And
see.
I was
Okay,
like,
gotcha.
yes, February is fine. They're like December 18th or 16th. I was like, yeah, that's fine. They're like, the ninth? And I was like, yeah, fuck it, let's go.
There you go. Just they keep upping it, and then eventually it's like they're waiting for you to say no, and you just haven't. So that's great. When do you want to fight? I mean, you mentioned the holidays are coming up. I'm sure you want to enjoy a little bit there. But is there kind of an ideal timeline for you to get back in there?
There's not, especially after getting this short notice. Like it was kind of scary because I took almost a month off just to rest after the Makayev fight. And then when I got the call to go in a week, I was a little bit worried about my cardio, but at the same time, like I'm 36 years old, I had a rested body. Like I went into that fight without any injuries, and that never happens. Like usually I'm banged up going into the fight. There's something that's hurt on me, so I was able to go in there fresh. Maybe my cardio wasn't the best, but I didn't have any. There was nothing like picking at me. There was no nagging injuries. I was healthy and ready to go, and that hardly ever happens. So my goal now is just to stay in camp and stay in shape and maybe be that guy that can come and fill in if they need a guy at 35 or 25 or wherever. I like that. I like me having to think. The less thinking I have to do in this game, the
The
better.
better.
I'm a doer. I'm not a thinker. I'm a doer. I like to go.
Any opponents in mind, or you kind of leave that up to the UFC and your management?
Yeah, man, it's hard because I'm edged around the top 10, so can't really just fight anybody. They want you trying to go up in the rankings, and then that's happened to me before where I was ranked and they're like, oh, who do you want to fight? And I was like, I want to fight this guy. I'm like, oh, you can't fight him, he's not ranked. And I was like, okay. And then like, oh, you're gonna fight Nascimento. And I'm like, well, he's not ranked either. I don't understand. So it's I want exciting fights. There's a ton. Kaiker France, Amir Albazi, like there's guys that are gonna get in and like just scrap. And you know, those are the fights that I really want. And really I'm just happy to have a job and happy to be able to compete. So I could I could fight anybody, and I can fight at 35 too.
Yeah, which is a good option to have for the UFC if they need someone to fill in, which is great. We've got the flyweight title fight this Saturday between Pantoja and Royval. The rematch, obviously, you fought Royval. Do you have a prediction for that fight? Who do you see coming out on top there?
I think Pantoja is probably the best in the division. He's so good at what he's good at. He's great all over. He's one of the older guys as well. Always somebody that I've kind of looked up to in the division. I've always watched him, always been a fan. But man, Brandon Rival is just tricky and dangerous. So I think Rival is going to end up getting it done. I don't know how long he will keep the belt because and that's another thing I like Rival is like you never know what he's going to do. He could beat anybody and he could be beat by anybody. So I don't know. It's really exciting. I think Rival will get it done. And man, the flyweight division is on fire right now. There's a lot of guys that are really, really good and a lot of really fun fights. So I think Rival will end up catching something. He's just dangerous. Like when I fought him, I was doing really well with him, but I always felt like I was in danger. He's just one of those guys. He always has a finish factor about him.
I know you talked about this already, but how satisfying was your sponsored fighter, Tony Soto, getting the win over there in bare knuckle?
I mean, it was satisfying in the sense that Tony is a good guy and I like the guy and I know what it's like to have to hustle for sponsors. I could care less, about the other. I don't want anything bad to happen to Kevin Kroom or him not to do well in his career. Like I'm not a guy that can really hold a grudge or feel, I know people make mistakes, but Tony messaged me and was like, hey man, he's like, I've been married to my wife for a long time. I fucking love her. And this, I just hate people like this, blah, blah. He's like, I'm going to fuck this dude up. And then I saw him like digging around for sponsors. And I was like, hey man, I'll give you 500 a show and 500 if you knock him out. And then he put my head on his banner. So it was funny. Again, it was more fun for me to help Tony than to hurt Kevin. You know what I mean? I'm not, I'm not that petty. It was more one of those things that I like Tony. I think he's good and he is good.
What are your plans for the holidays? You mentioned spending time with your daughter. Do you got anything else going on as far as the holiday season?
I'm here in Texas until the 18th. My daughter gets out of school on the 20th, so I'll drive back around then, pick her up from school. She's got I'll go to her last day of school. We go and have a lunch there, and they get a half day, and it's like ugly sweater day. So I'll go eat lunch with her, and then the place where she gets her toes done at is having a Santa Claus there. So me, Sterling, and her mother will go get pedicures and see Santa Claus, and then I'll take her to my grandparents for the next 2 weeks. So
That's awesome. That's really good. By the way, do you ever get like when you go to like school and stuff, do parents like know who you are and everything? Like, is it, or are you just like dad Tim to everyone else?
It's weird because she goes to like a fancy private school, and like
Oh, nice.
we're the poor we're the poor ones at the school, and like
Okay.
there's I'm on the pickup list to pick up like 5 different kids from the school, and like sometimes I'll pick them all up, and like I don't even have enough seatbelts in my car, so usually like of course my kid is the one without a seatbelt, but I'm like always like looking around, I was like these parents are just letting these kids go with this fighter, and but I have the single dad with a big empty house. Sterling has 3 rooms in the house. She has her bedroom that she doesn't sleep in. She has the spare bedroom, which is her TV room, and then she has a huge playroom upstairs with bounce houses and shit up there. So all the kids like to come over there, and they can run amok and tear the house up, and nobody cares. So it's great. I don't know if any of the parents know me, but all the kids and teachers do. I mean, a few times a month, I'll go eat lunch at the school and sit with all the Sterling and her girls and just goof off with them. So it's not really the parents, I don't think so much. Like Sterling has her 4 or 5 friends. The parents know me, but no, I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm popular enough for any of the other private school parents, and or if they do notice, they don't say anything.
Well, just if you don't mind me asking, why did you decide private school as opposed to public? Because I know there's a lot of, not to get too political here, but I know there's a lot of kind of like school under fire right now. Some of the stuff they're teaching, was that part of it, or it was just like a close school? What was your decision to put her in private school?
Well, no, it wasn't close. We were in Las Vegas when she was starting school, and it was during the
Right.
pandemic. And I wanted her to be in private school, a Christian private school, or something with, I'm not religious really, but I think, a little bit of God and Jesus is going to be better than, a little bit of
Everything
the.
else that's out there. Yeah, I know where you're heading with this, and I completely agree. I think that's great, by the way, like getting kids structure and all that stuff. I think we've lost our way a bit in the educational system. So I think that's great that you put your daughter in private school. I think that's awesome. So, and I'm
Well,
sure
and like
it's a little bit easier to manage, right? So
yeah, and she loves the school, and it's a great school. But a big part of it is when Sterling was a baby, it was just her and and like I didn't know anything about raising kids or having a kid or like what shots to get or whatever. But I became friends with a pediatrician. And when I was going to get her leaving the hospital, she didn't get any shots because I asked him, I was like, well, what are the chances of her getting something? They're like, oh, almost none. She's going to get these all at her 2 month shot. So I was like, okay, cool. We'll go get her at the 2 month shot. Well, with the pediatrician, and he kind of spooked me when he said like, he did a different vaccination thing than they're doing now. And I was like, why? He's like, well, this is just what they're selling. And I kind of got nervous. So she didn't get her shots. And then we got a call saying that it's a conflict of interest. He could no longer be my pediatrician. So my daughter's never had any vaccinations for anything. And it
interesting.
wasn't, it
Okay.
wasn't me being like anti-vaxxer. First time kid, I was scared of like giving her something and making her sick. But she's never been in the hospital. She's never sick. She's never broken a bone. She's never had stitches. She's never had any injuries or ailments. So like I'll be devastated if she gets fucking polio or something because I was an idiot and just didn't know any better. But private school was kind of her only option because she doesn't have any vaccine. And like at this school, I
Oh,
was
that
like,
makes sense. Okay, I see. I see. Yeah, they're not as strict on that stuff. That makes
well,
sense.
no, I was like, oh, she don't have any vac. They were like, this is a Christian school. God is the only vaccine she needs. And I was like, okay.
There you go. Okay, that makes sense. Hey, Tim, thanks for doing this, man. Really appreciate it. If there's anyone you'd like to thank before we get out of here, sponsors, social media, anything like that, I'll give you the last word.
Oh man, Jason House, Jacob, all the guys at Iridium, my management team, that literally like they're the only reason why I was able to stay in the UFC this long. They keep going to bat for me, and my coaches here at Next Generation, Austin Ford, Chris Brennan, all the guys here at Next Gen helping me out. Like I literally could not do it without them. Like I wouldn't be able to do it. So those guys get all the glory goes to them really.